Hi, my name's Karena Walter, and welcome to the St. Catharines Standard Newsroom. I'm here with Mayor Walter Sendzik for our monthly chat with the mayor, and we have lots to talk about, so let's get underway here.
It is a busy time of year right now.
You have been on the road quite a bit in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's starting to feel. I'm starting to feel it, but it's been exciting all the same. So I was in Edmonton for pretty much a week at the Mayor's Poverty Reduction Summit, hosted by the Tamarack Institute, and then almost immediately following that, came back for a quick refresh, and then headed to Ottawa for large urban mayors meetings with ministers, federal ministers. So it's been a whirlwind of the last 14 days.
Let's start with the Poverty Summit. What was discussed there, and was it mostly about learning, or were you sharing information as well?
It was both. So last year I went to the summit that was held in Ottawa, and I was one of only a handful of mayors last year. And this year they really focused on cities and mayors and the actions and practices that the mayors in different communities are bringing to their community around poverty reduction. So Mayor of Calgary, Edmonton, the Deputy Mayor of Toronto, there was mayors from smaller towns, medium-sized towns. Mayor Fred from Hamilton was with me as well. And I had an opportunity to be on a panel with a number of mayors, and I talked about the compassionate city concept that we have recently released and are talking about. And it was an opportunity to see how the model would be embraced by the community that was in the room. So there was about 300 people at the conference, at the summit. And it was great to see how overwhelmingly supportive people were of the concept. And one of the takeaways, there was a woman from she's a chief of a First Nations group in what would be I think it was Yellowknife. And she came up to me after and she said, you know, everything you talked about, the culture shift, because you can have the best strategy in place, but it's the culture and shifting of that culture that the compassionate city model is built around. And her from her perspective, she's taking that back to her community. And that is the whole concept of compassionate city is taking the lens of compassion and applying it to the city and changing the culture of how we see things, how we interact when it comes to poverty reduction. And it's the care plus action. So I was able to articulate that to the attendees, and I had the Deputy Mayor of Toronto come up after and say, you know what, although we're a very big city, the city of Toronto, this is something that I'm going to bring back and talk about how we can shift the culture within our corporation to be that city as a corporation that really embraces the compassionate side. So that was a validator for me, and then as well, it was an opportunity to learn what other communities are doing, and there was a lot of learning going on. So I was quite impressed with the actual summit.
St. Catharines is the only city in Canada right now
that has this model. That has the model, yeah. And that was actually another exciting opportunity to talk about and with other mayors and the sort of strategies that they're working on, and how ours is unique because it's a way of thinking. And I think, you know, for those viewers who may not be aware or understanding of the compassionate city model, it's about creating the culture, the compassionate culture, that then you can introduce strategies to, and the strategies of poverty reduction. When you build that into a culture that's a compassionate culture, the success rate, in our opinion, will continue to go up. So it's a long-term program. It's a long-term shift of culture. It doesn't happen overnight, but I think from the feedback I've gotten from the St. Catharines community, it's something that everyone's really embracing, and I'm actually quite proud of that, because a lot of people have put a lot of time and effort into this.
What are some of the steps that St. Catharines has taken up to this point?
Well, it's about creating the model. So the compassionate city model we have it's corporately driven. So one of the concepts and takeaways I had from last year's summit was it starts from within. We can be directional as a city. We can, as a mayor, I can say, well, you know, we need to end homelessness, but it's not within the city's purview to do that. It's not within our authority. That's a housing issue that's at the regional level. Or we can, you know, join in and help create a food drive for community care. Or we can raise awareness for boots and jackets for kids. We can do all that. And that's something that, you know, is right within the wheelhouse of the mayor and council. But there has to be something more foundational to it. And so the compassionate city model is really about working with the corporation of City of St. Catharines. And like I said at the summit, there's no corporation in any city across this country that touches more points of the community, whether it be sidewalks, roads, arenas, libraries, aquatic centers. There's no other organization that touches so much of the community. So we see, our staff see what's in the community. Our staff is interacting with people all the time. And yet we don't provide the resources or the knowledge or the empower them to be a part of the community in a way that allows them to, when they see someone who's homeless in a park, how do they deal with it? How do they help to provide the resource to help get that person out of being homeless? Or the mother who comes in and says they can't pay their water bill. What is our approach to that? Do we simply say, well, you have to pay the water bill? Or can we set up a system that allows that person to access the other services that are provided, creating that net around people who are looking for the need and opportunity in our community?
So that's what's happening behind the scenes right now, is kind of developing those.
Yeah, and then we have the model where we're taking staff on a bus tour of areas of the city that largely they probably have never seen before, underneath the bridges where the homeless folks would be, and looking at areas of the community where there's those who are people working in the sex trade industry, rent areas where there's a lot of drug use, and also taking them by the service providers, the Quest, the YWCA, the Community Cares, the RAFs, and showing the services that are being provided, and at the same time on the bus having those with lived experience. And that's an important part because they tell their stories. And when the staff get off the bus and we go into a debrief on the meeting and where we're going next with the model, it's changed a lot of people's lives. And these are staff members that represent the City of St. Catharines, and they're in our community on a daily basis working with individuals and working with members of the community. And this is going to be transformative in how the city corporation is a part of dealing with the issues of poverty in our community and helping to be a part of the positive solutions and outcomes.
Is there anything at the conference that you took away from it that you think you could bring to St. Catharines?
Well, I think one of the underlying themes was having a robust public transit system, and that was a key message that was delivered. The concepts of the living wage and making sure that in a community there's enough for everyone. That's enough for everyone is the Calgary model. The Winnipeg promise, about creating a promise for every resident in the community, a promise in which, to end things like racism, to end things like inequality. Like there's a momentum across the country, in our neighboring community of Hamilton, the work they're doing on homelessness as well. We can learn off of the best practices. And again, going back to transit, how important it is to have a connected transit system. If we don't have a connected transit system here in Niagara, we will continue to fall behind, and our most vulnerable will continue to fall behind because they won't be able to access services, they won't be able to access employment opportunities, and they won't be able to access the safety net that allows them to step up in their life. And that, to me, is one of the single most biggest drivers for our region, is to get that transit model complete so that we can move people around Niagara effectively.
Sounds like the other conference you went to in Ottawa was quite a bit different. That was a large urban mayors conference with the ministers, and Trudeau was there?
Yes, we had an opportunity to talk to the Prime Minister. He came into one of our meetings and really set the agenda for where the province is, where the federal government is going when it comes to infrastructure funding and his vision for cities. And he's absolutely in line with our way of thinking. As cities grow, so does the Canadian economy, so does the prosperity of Canada. So this is the first time in more than 30 years that cities are actually having an opportunity to sit at the table with the province and the feds and the First Nations. And the way he explained it is there used to be two sides to the table, the province and the feds. And the new model is a four-sided table where you have First Nations, cities, province, and the federal government. And that's, I think, how we're going to transform the country and transform cities and create prosperity in provinces and lift people up who are in need of being lifted up. And it was a very empowering message from the Prime Minister. Got to talk to him briefly just about what's going on in St. Catharines. We met with the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Sohi. We met with Minister of Transportation, Mark Garneau. We had an opportunity to the Intergovernmental Affairs Minister, Adam Vaughan. These were all discussions that we were able to have about what's the funding look like, how long is the funding going to be in place, it was more details. And there's been a lot of discussion from the federal government about how much money is going to be deployed into infrastructure, but what we're looking for as cities, what are the details? And so we were able to have those conversations that pointed to, here's how you need to prepare for what kind of funding is going to be made available around social housing, around hard infrastructure, sewers, waters, and roads, and also around green energy, green infrastructure. And when you look at the projects that we have forthcoming, there's a lot of points that we can check off in those boxes. So it was an intense 2 days in Ottawa, but it's very, the future looks very strong for cities across the country, including St. Catharines.
How do you decide which meetings to go to or what conferences to go to?
Well, I look at my platform that I ran on, and I ran on a platform that included looking at ways and means to reduce poverty reduction in our community. I looked at another part of my platform is building the city, building our city up, and addressing our infrastructure deficit or infrastructure gaps. So when we look at where's my time best spent, I look at what the commitment I made to the people of St. Catharines through my campaign, and I make sure that it's in line with where I'm going, whether it be for conferences or for meetings with ministers. And to date, that's how when you look at my travel schedule, that's where my alignment is. There's a lot of conferences that are out there. There's summits on everything you could think of. My trip to Chicago last year, where I went as part of the FabTech, which is the largest manufacturing forum in North America, I went there specifically to learn about where manufacturing is going, as we have a large manufacturing base still in Niagara, St. Catharines. So I wanted to make sure that I had the knowledge of where the industry was going, so coming back, we can provide the resource base and the alignment with where the industry is going. So that's where the decision-making process comes in as to which summits to go to and which conferences to go to, and it's been an exciting opportunity to learn about all this.
I did have an infrastructure question for you about the Port Dalhousie Piers. Yep. Tomorrow is the first year, 1 year anniversary of the piers closing. What's the latest on that?
So we had an opportunity through MP Chris Biddle. He set up a meeting with the Department of Ocean Fisheries in Ottawa, so I met with them yesterday with MP Biddle. We had a very good conversation with their senior team about the importance of the piers, where they are in the planning process, the need for public consultations. The commitment was public consultations are forthcoming. They will be forthcoming sooner rather than later. We're waiting for the fixed dates in which they would be able to come down and work through the proposals that they've put forward. Our internal staff and the staff of the Department of Ocean and Fisheries have been working closely on the remediation potential of the piers. Work is going to start this summer on remediating some parts of the piers that require immediate action around, especially around the yacht club. And there's areas that are in need of shoring up so that the yacht club can operate and be functional. From the public consultation process, we're looking to coalesce on a vision for what we want the piers to look like and be rehabilitated to moving forward. And I've always said, it's not about rehabilitating the piers to the way they are today. This is our opportunity to work with the federal government to rehabilitate the piers to where we want them to be for the next 50 to 75 years. So this is a wonderful opportunity, and yes, it is disappointing for a lot of people on a beautiful weekend like we're going to be having coming forward to not be able to access the full extent of the piers, but the reality is it's a safety issue first, and then once the construction period starts and we can get the piers rehabilitated, then we'll be able to enjoy those piers for another 50, 60 years, just like our uncles and aunts and fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers got to enjoy. So it is, I'm asking the public for understanding that this is a safety issue currently, and then once the public has an opportunity to weigh in on the proposals, we'll set a very aggressive agenda to get those piers opened again.
Is the work this summer then just temporary work until
temporary
they decide
work.
exactly what
It's
they're going to be doing with them?
Temporary work primarily around the Port Toulouse Yacht Club, so it's on the east side. So there's some structural issues there, and with the foundation there, it needs to be shored up in order for the boats to be able to tie up there. So that work will be done. At the same time, we'll be working with the public.
I wanted to get some reader questions
Sure,
in
go
before
ahead.
we run out of time here. We have one about St. Paul Street downtown. A reader is asking, what can you do to ensure that roads like St. Paul Street aren't continually ripped up? If we're committed to a vibrant downtown, we can't keep ripping up the main street. And that's from John 2.0.
And I couldn't agree with them more, and I was frustrated when I saw that the street will be closed for a period of time, up to 50 days. I just want to remind the viewers that it is Enbridge that's doing the work. It's not a city construction project. The unfortunate part was the opportunity to update the gas mains was available during the construction of the Performing Arts Center, but due to the length of time that it would have taken, it would have delayed the potential opening of the center. And so the decision at the time, so that was previous to me being on council, but the decision of council and staff was to do it in a two-staged approach, allow the Performing Arts Center to move forward from a construction phase, get it open, up and running, and then bring in the opportunity to rip up the street and do the gas main, sorry. So the gas main is now being replaced. It won't have to be ripped up again for, again, hopefully 50 years. All the services have now been updated underneath, so that road won't have to addressed again. But once this work is done, then the streetscaping will start. So this is the last major project that will be undertaken in that area. Then the streetscaping, and what we're looking at, and what's exciting about this is once the water mains are done, the gas mains are done, we're extending the sidewalks out. It's actually going to look like a urban, big city downtown where you have extended sidewalks so people can. It's more pedestrian friendly, and that's what we're pushing for at City Council, is creating a pedestrian friendly downtown. It's something that the council's been pushing for a while. So this will be the first phase of how we're going to redesign the downtown experience from a pedestrian point of view once this construction is taking place. So I'm looking forward to it.
Is it just in that one section by the
For now,
center?
until once that quadrant, I'll call it a quadrant, once that quadrant's done, then we'll look at how the flow of pedestrian traffic and bike traffic and vehicle traffic all flow on St. Paul Street. And I think what my vision, and I know I share this with other councillors, my vision is for St. Paul Street to be much more pedestrian friendly and less vehicle heavy. And so that allow for people to walk and feel safe in how they're walking about and crossing the streets. You see it in a lot of urban centers where they have main streets that are more pedestrian oriented than vehicle oriented, and St. Paul Street is perfectly situated for that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that happen in the next couple of years.
I think we have time for one more here. We have a reader wondering about whether or not St. Catharines Transit has a plan in place to improve service to the train station if and when GO Train comes.
Well, and there is no if. GO Train is coming, and it's just a matter of when in terms of the timelines. And so what we're working on now is Transportation Master Plan, and the Transportation Master Plan will layer in transit, vehicle, traffic patterns, bike lanes, and everything else associated to the connectivity to the hubs of something like the GO station with public transit. So we're working hard on that on our end through the public transit side. The region's working on a transportation master plan that'll layer in with our transportation master plan. And then when GO arrives, we should hopefully have the network in place that'll allow people to get to and fro the GO station to all points across our city and across our region. So these are exciting times for St. Catharines. There's a lot of momentum out there, and if I could just end with, the other mayors that I've been talking to and going to other communities and really having a conversation about city building, is that St. Catharines is on the map. People are talking about what's going on in St. Catharines, and they're hearing more and more about it in their networks. And so that shows you that we're effective in getting the positive results of what's happening in St. Catharines to a larger audience, and that's taken a lot of effort, but we're definitely going down that road.
Well, thanks for joining us today, and thank you for joining us. And you can meet us again next month for our chat with the mayor.
Thanks for having me.